Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now May 5th of 2025, and given that the Katy Perry backlash is still going on to this day, not just for herself, but also for Blue Origin as a whole, even for Jeff Bezos, who really orchestrated the entire event on live television, we know one thing in this entire case is that we know that Katy Perry is dealing with endless backlash, not just based on how she reacted to her spaceflight, but also doubling down on damage control, trying to tame the backlash day in and day out, which in the end, let's be very real, it only made matters worse for herself. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about all of this is that we know that Katy Perry is doing everything in her power to essentially win back the fans that walked away from her overall career, and especially from her Lifetimes tour after what they saw from Katy Perry on live television, you know, how she reacted, how she was blaming it on sexism and misogyny and all this nonsense for why she was receiving so much criticism and how there's a lot of bigotry in this country. She kept going on, and it didn't make anything better for herself. That's exactly why she's in this vicious cycle. However, what's interesting here has a lot to do with her so-called quote-unquote apology now toward the general public based on her recent behavior, based on her erratic behavior, I should say. And what's really going on here is that at the end of the day, she's only trying to win back fans. She's trying to win back those that want nothing to do with Katy Perry anymore. And I think that reality is beginning to settle in now, especially after ticket sales are declining sharply in specific US markets. Alright, we'll talk more about those numbers and the metrics in specifics in the coming hours. But what's interesting about this is that with the Katy Perry spaceflight backlash still an ongoing issue, not just for herself, but also for Blue Origin and everyone else that was on board, such as those like Gayle King and Jeff Bezos' fiance. However, one major development going on now involves how Katy Perry recently apologized in the most embarrassing way possible to the public based on her recent behavior. Perry delivered the following in a desperate move to win back her support. "I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry to my world and to all the people that live on this earth. I think sometimes when you do something that is perceived as impossible for women to accomplish and to do together as a group, and you accomplish that, you can overreact and behave differently. And I do apologize if my emotions offended anyone out there that may have had an issue with all of that. But one just does not understand the great accomplishment that we made as women. And the overall thing is an obvious problem that's growing with sexism in this country, and the criticism that we received made that ultimately clear. I don't think I can ever really fully apologize for what I went through in space together as a group, but perhaps you can get lost in your own emotions that are specific demographics felt the need to mock at, and that was extremely offensive to me as a woman. So I don't know, sometimes I sort of feel like I have a sorry not sorry type of vibe going on in my head, you know? When you take a closer look at what I accomplished, I mean, who wouldn't act like that, coming down from space and landing back on this beautiful Mother Earth that supports life and allows us to understand the universe? We need to realize that we are all so special, and one's behavior should not matter, period. Because this trip to space was about freedom. It was about expressing yourself and really just seeing what the universe has to offer outside of our society. When you are up there and you are looking down, you realize how driven, not just our country, but many others are by growing issues against women. Sexism is a very serious thing now, and seemingly it is something that is allowed as criticism. So I don't think I can really say that I am fully sorry to everyone based on my actions and behavior, but in the end, when you are floating in space and you are up there, it changes you as a human being, and I see everything so different now, and you are going to see this inspiration come to life with my Lifetimes tour in a very special way. So guys, let me just stop here about what Katy Perry is spewing. Again, I think that there's more celebrities now beginning to hop on the bandwagon, just like Rachel Zegler did, just like other celebrities have been doing in the past, I would say 2.5 weeks now, are these half apologies, right? Where they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I apologize this, I apologize that. And then they just kind of reverse action literally like 5 sentences later. And that really is Katy Perry right now. We know that she's trying to just kind of twist her apology. It's not even an apology, she's making it all about herself. She's making it about growing issues in the real world, quote unquote. You know, things like sexism, misogyny, all this nonsense that she likes to bring up in her arguments and her debates, whenever she receives criticism. This is exactly, by the way, what Meghan Markle does, what Rachel Zegler does, what so many also actors out there do. It's not just limited to actresses in Hollywood. But what's interesting about this, when you look at her as a singer/performer and how she is incorporating this spaceflight into her Lifetimes tour, I think that just goes to show you that yes, this was all pre-planned, and she kind of alluded to that was the case a couple of days ago, where she said she went up there to kind of have a life-changing moment for her career, to kind of get inspired again, to gain some form of inspiration in her life, to really make herself work better, and to actually have a wider angle to her work. So a lot of it was driven by that. It wasn't necessarily just to strictly go to the edge of space just for the heck of it. A lot of it had to do with her career, and that's going to be incorporated, like I said, both visually and, as she put it, spiritually as well in the Lifetimes tour. So she's already creating things like costumes that will emulate space and astronauts, and she's also going to create more dance moves that will actually honor Blue Origin and her time in space. I can only imagine what that's going to look like. However, she continues, I just don't want to give anything away at the moment, but I think everyone is going to be thrilled. We need to start supporting women more. It's 2025 now, and for far too long have they been neglected and far from celebrated for accomplishing very wide goals for humanity, such as what we did on April 14th when all women finally got the chance to go up to space. That is something I can never apologize for, but I will say this, it is about time that we all realize that the reason why we gained so much criticism was that there is a lot of issues against women right now, still to this day. Again, she's going on that constant trope about how this is an issue with women. It is not a problem with women at all. I think the real problem that a lot of people had was not just how she reacted going up and coming down, with Blue Origin, but also how she kept on comparing herself to being an astronaut. Time and time again, and even she alluded to that just like 3 days ago, where she said, we actually face the same exact risks that every single astronaut does every single day when they're up there, in the ISS or doing all these different missions. Katy Perry did nothing of the sort, right? We know that she was only up there in, I would just say, about a minute and a half, maybe a minute and 40 seconds, correct me if I'm wrong, when they were floating. It wasn't even all that long, and then once they surpassed that, they started to come back down. And it really was just a minute, give or take, a minute plus, that they actually got the opportunity to float in that capsule. So again, she experienced nothing close to what astronauts do day in and day out, and doing all these different missions, staying up there for months. We're talking like 5, 6, 7 months at a time. Now again, we know that Katy Perry is trying to do whatever she can to come across as a little bit more, I guess you could say, level-headed, and I don't think it really worked in her favor. I think it made her actually come across as more insane by somewhat apologizing in the beginning and then kind of twisting it into a non-apology. And it wasn't really even an apology, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, call me crazy. Even in the beginning, it wasn't even a so-called apology. It really just sounded like how she put it, I'm sorry, not sorry type of attitude. And she even admitted that. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.